Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to use Soundtrap to produce your own music. First thing you want to do is go to soundtrap.com. You want to sign up using Google if you haven't signed up before. It's the easiest way I know of to do it. Just type in your email address and your password and it'll bring it up. When you get to the main page, this is what it looks like. Move my picture out of the way a little bit here so we can see some things. This is the free version. There is another version that you can pay for. It has a few more options and stuff. These are some songs that I've just experimented with in the past. This is the one we're going to be working on today, and you can see there's no, down here there's a sound wave file right here, and there's one here. There's nothing here because there's nothing recorded in this one yet, so I just made this one as an example today. So before we get into it, if you want to do this with other people, you can click right here on the invite, and you can either send them this link or you can type their email address in. You can actually collaborate on this in real time. So as they add things, it'll pop up on yours. As you add things, it'll pop up on theirs. So that's a good way to combine projects with people without having to email a bunch of stuff back and forth. So this one is just me, so I'm going to go to Studio. Studio is where everything happens as far as the recording goes. When the studio page comes up, you see all this right here in the middle. This is where most of your work starts. You can start by hitting Add Track. You can also hit it over here. Either way is fine. To show you where a few things are before we start adding things, this is kind of the transport. They call this the transport section down here. So it goes play, rewind, fast forward, stop. There's a record button right here, and I'll show you more about that in a minute. Master volumes over here. This will tell you how far along in the song you are. The key is blank right now. You can type a key in there if you want to. Whenever you make your song, you don't have to. 152 is the tempo right now. If you want to change the tempo, you can click on this and you can either type or use the arrows, and it starts to play it for you so you can hear it. Or you can tap on here. And you tap at least 4 times and it automatically puts the tempo in for you there. So hit confirm whenever you figure out the tempo that you want. This is to turn the metronome on and off. I have it on right now. Here's some options for the metronome. You can play around with these different sounds that you like. I like the click one because if I'm using headphones, it doesn't go through the microphone from the headphones very easily. It doesn't have a high-pitched sound, so I like the click one the best. You can adjust the volume of the metronome independently from the volume of your song. I always leave this on 2 bars for the counting, which means it's going to give you 2 measures to count off before it actually starts recording. And I'll show you again what that looks like more in a minute. You can change it to 1 bar or turn it off if you want to record as soon as you hit the record button. I usually leave it on 2 bars just so I have time to get to whatever I'm going to use for that song. So we're going to hit Add Track. I'll hit it down here. Now, usually you can pick any of these instruments you want to pick, but for this one, I'm going to just use my microphone to record some things. So I'm going to hit Microphone. Brings up this big giant record button right here. You can check and see if your microphone is active, the one that you want. You can change some settings on the microphone right here, do a little volume check if you need to. These 3 are the basic effects that are on your song as soon as you start. So you have reverb, which is like the echo. You have pan, which means if you're listening on headphones, it'll be either in your left or right ear, or since mine is right up and down, it'll be right in the middle. Volume, of course, is the loudness, the softness of it. There's some other effects you can click on, you can add, you can change. The only one of these I use a lot. I use different ones from different times, but this one right here, the dynamics compressor, I use this a lot because that one, as you're playing, especially if it's something you've recorded with a microphone, it kind of evens out your volume a little bit. So the highs get pulled down, the high volumes get pulled down a little bit, the low volumes get pulled up a little bit to kind of meet in the middle. There's still some dynamic contrast in there, but it's not as drastic. If you hit a really loud note accidentally or a really quiet note or something, it kind of balances it out a little bit. Last thing I want to show you before we record some stuff, make sure you save. The save button is right here, so I'm going to go ahead and hit it. It saves really fast, saves to the website, so it doesn't save your computer, it doesn't take up any space in your computer. But you want to make sure you do click the save because it doesn't automatically save as you go along. And if you lose the website, you'll lose all your progress. Okay? So next thing I'm going to do is record a little bit. To record, before you do it, you have to hit the R button right here, which means it's called arming the track, which is this right here for recording. So that way it knows that you're going to record on this track. If I had more tracks, let's just add a couple more here. Whatever one the R is on is going to record on whenever I hit the start recording button. If I have more R's, like if I arm all of these tracks, It's going to record on all these tracks at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to only hit one of them, and you want to make sure you turn this off if you're going to record more than one track. Turn it off on the ones you don't want to record on. It'll record over what you've already done, which is kind of a pain. So I'm going to turn these off. I'm actually going to go ahead and get rid of these for now because I don't need them yet. Let me show you what happens when you hit recording. You hit record, and then it'll count down right here at the bottom of the screen. That's the count in that we had earlier with the metronome settings. So here's what happens. You see it counts down at the tempo that we were going. Right now our metronome's off. We'll turn it back on. So now the metronome's clicking in the background. It has the time right here. It has the stop button when you get done. And you can see right here, this is where your sound is going to end up being. So this tells you how many measures at that tempo it's going to be. And this is in groups of 2 right now. You can adjust that if you want to. You can kind of hide, or you can adjust the scale of the page. Sorry. So let's stop. Now all of this right here that you see, that's the sound wave. It should be what I was just saying as I recorded. So let me see what that sounds like. So now the metronome's clicking in the background. It has the time right here. It has stop button. So you can hear a couple things. You can hear the metronome clicking. I'm going to turn it off here, so you should still be able to hear it. Get done. You can see right here, this is where your sound is going to end up. So you hear my voice, you hear the echo, which is the reverb. I'm going to turn that off because we don't really need it for now. You also hear that the metronome here is showing up in the recording because it's coming through my computer speakers and going back into my microphone. So if you want to eliminate that, use headphones, which I have some here, which I'll use when I actually record. Use headphones while you record, and the sound, the metronome sound will come through the headphones. Your sound will be recorded by the microphone, but it won't pick up the click coming through the metronome. Okay, so I'm going to delete this. I'm going to record something real quick, and then I'll come back. All right, I've got the guitar part recorded, so let's listen to that real quick. Not too bad. And you'll notice I named the guitar over here as well. You can just double click on that and change the name to anything you want to. If you're doing this with multiple people, or you have multiple instruments and you have different tracks, that's a really good thing to do, is to rename each track with either the instrument name or the person's name, anything like that, to help you keep them straight from which one's which. Otherwise, they'd just say Mike. They would all say Mike, and that would be very difficult to keep track of. You can also see, if I click on the little microphone, it brings up the recording area with all the effects and everything. On this guitar part, you can also see I've turned the reverb up a little bit. So earlier I had the reverb all the way down. I turned it up to about 10 or 11 o'clock. That gives the sound a little bit more space around it. So here's the sound with no reverb. Okay, and then here's some reverb back up about where I had it. You can hear if I add it all the way up, it just makes everything really washy and kind of hard to listen to because there's just too much going on at the same time. So you don't want to use too much reverb, but if you use a little bit, it kind of gives it more of a room sound, more of a natural kind of sound, especially for acoustic instruments like guitars, violins, violas, banjos, stuff like that. You can also see right here, I've turned the pan over to the right side a little bit. So it was straight up and down. Now I've got it over to the right. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but the idea is I want this to be off on the one side of my headphones. I don't want it to be right down the middle with everything else. So speaking of everything else, I'm going to go ahead and add a couple other parts here. I'm going to at least add a bass part. So I have a bass part here and then maybe another part as well. So I'll come back in just a minute when I do that. So I'm back, and I actually added 2 more parts. So I added the bass part here and I added the chord part here. So the bass part by itself would sound like this. And by the way, this little button right here is called solo. So solo, if you click on that, means it's only going to play that track that's highlighted, and it's going to automatically mute the other 2. You can also mute these manually if you want to. So if I wanted to only play the bass track in the middle, I could mute these manually with that button. But solo is a little bit faster. So I'm going to solo the bass track so you can just hear the bass track by itself. Okay. Now, I have a couple basses around, but I did all these on the same guitar. So these are all going to be the same instrument that you're hearing for each one of these parts. It's just a little easier for me to do it that way. And if you're doing it like this by yourself, you might find it easy to do that if you have a lot of the same instrument or a lot of the same parts on different instruments. The next one is the chord part. So here's the chord part. Solo that. Go back to the beginning. Here's what the chord part sounds like by itself. All right. And here are all three parts together. Not too bad. Now, because I've recorded these all on the same instrument, not an actual bass guitar for the bass part, this is actually a little bit too high. So the octave that this is in the same octave as all the other parts. So they're all kind of going to blend together a little bit. So what we're going to do is, to make it sound more like a bass, we're going to click on it. I'm going to click Edit, go to Change Pitch, and these are all half steps, numbers of half steps. If you've seen my other videos, you know the half steps are part of music theory, that the distance between notes, intervals between notes. It's the smallest interval that we have. And so 12 half steps is a full octave. So we're going to go to 12. We're going to go negative 12, because we want to go down a whole octave, down 12 half steps. Okay, now if you'll notice, this little, the bass part has two chunks. And this first little chunk is lit up dark green. This chunk is a lighter color green. This is actually because I did this in 2 different takes, so I played the whole thing through once, which is what this longer piece is. But I actually messed up part at the beginning. So I went back and re-recorded just the beginning chunk. And you can see there's a little white line right there. That denotes where the clips are. So this is the second clip that I did, and it's separate from the first clip I did. So if we're going to drop them both down an octave, we have to make sure that we click on both. So this one right now is down an octave. We just did that. So click on the second one, highlight it, go to Edit again, change pitch, negative 12. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit save because I don't want to lose any work. And again, when you save this, it saves it to the website. You'll notice right here it says mixing. That's the process that goes through of saving it to the website. They call it mixing. So when this goes away, you'll know it's actually saved. So right now it's in the process of saving. We're going to go ahead and listen to it. Go back to the beginning here. We're going to listen to all 3 parts with the bass dropped down an octave. So you should hear a little bit different sound. All right. One more thing I want to show you. On the bass part, if you look at this down here, all this stuff down here and these little effects, watch the volume right here as I go from part to part. So here's the guitar part. It's pretty high because the guitar part's the melody part, so it's going to be the loudest. It needs to be the loudest. The bass part is here. It's a little bit lower, but we're going to turn it up just a hair because sometimes the bass, when it gets real low like that, gets lost a little bit. So we're going to turn it up just a little bit. And then the chord part is up a little bit more than the bass. And you'll also notice if you switch to the pan knob right here, on the chord part, which is the one we have highlighted right now, the pan is to the left a little bit. It's not perfectly up and down center. The bass is on the center, and the guitar is to the right a little bit. So the guitar part, which is the melody part, and the chord part are kind of split left and right, and the bass is right down the middle. And this kind of helps open up what we can hear with our ears. So everything's not muddled right in the same kind of sound right in the center of what we're listening for. Everything's kind of split, opens up a little bit of sound in the middle of it. Okay, so I would suggest if you're doing this with multiple parts, like if you had several people with several different instruments playing over here, I would suggest doing that at least a little bit. It doesn't have to be all the way one side or the other, but kind of open it up a little bit so everything's not right in the center. Kind of stagger a little bit toward the middle. Okay, so we're going to hit save one more time because we adjusted the volume a little bit. You can see it's mixing right here. So I'm going to show you how to export this. Now it's going to give me an error in just a second because it's still mixing, but I'm going to show you what to do. We're going to go to File, Export, Export to MP3, And if your project's still mixing, it's going to do this. It's going to tell you it's mixing. Come back and try it in a minute. So I'm going to come back when this is finished, and I'll show you how to export it for real. So you see now it doesn't say mixing anymore. The save is grayed out because there's nothing new to save. So we're going to go to File, Export to MP3. If you have the paid version of this, you can actually, there's some other options here for you. But we're going to go MP3. It'll pop up at the bottom of your screen or wherever it pops up on your computer. Then you can open it up from there from your File Explorer page, and you can just share it, email it, whatever you need to do. All right, so if you're doing this with a group of people, I would suggest having one person that's kind of in charge of the exporting and sharing part. So have everybody collaborate together so that you can all get your parts in the same piece together, in the same file together. And then one person share it, one person export it. That way everybody doesn't have different parts or different versions of it. You all finish it all the way through, play it all the way through, finish it, and then export it once at the very end. That's what I would do. So if you have any questions, this is a pretty easy program to use. They have really good tutorials and YouTube videos and stuff online. If you think of anything else that I didn't cover that you need help with, just let me know, and I'll be glad to help you out. See you.